What's good? God is good. I'm your host, Jay Did It. Welcome to Thursday Therapies, a podcast for all creatives, writers, rappers, poets, artists, activists, Sacramento community therapy session. Today I have Mercy Rei Tanq, aka grrlphag. She, her is a queer trans woman, poet, storyteller, teaching arts, visual artist, and activist. She has survived several dozen lives and lives to tell about every single one, despite a mean world trying to shake her loose. Be Merciless is her 8th self-released collection of poetry, out this June 2025. Mercy is a Red State Refugee who fled Ohio January 2024 and currently resides in Sacramento, California. She is the founder of grrlphag, an art movement and zine meant to foster a trans liberationist movement through a collaboration of trans artists. Welcome, Mercy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jay. I am so happy to be here.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad that you're here. We've been talking about it for months. We
have.
finally are here again.
Here we
and
are.
I love it. Yes.
Here we are.
So
Let's do it.
good.
I'm so ready.
the vibe is good. You look
Vibe's
amazing.
great. Thank you.
You look so good.
I feel good,
yes.
right? Like
yes,
I redid
right.
my hair last night.
Right. I
It's
love
like
it. I
getting
love
fresh.
it. That's good. So how you doing? How's everything going for you right now?
I'll be honest, things are a little rough right now. Like I got a lot going on, and I'm juggling a lot of different things up in the air and just trying to keep them up there. But like things are good. Things are moving in a positive direction. I just kind of got to keep that focus.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yep. Stay focused.
Absolutely.
That's the plan.
The
That is
laser
the plan.
focus.
Yeah. So as you know, this is Thursday Therapies. It's a podcast for all creatives, and we're going to have a discussion on mental health. And I just want to ask you some questions, get your outlook,
And
you
near
know,
and dear topic to my heart.
Definitely,
Very much
and listen to your stories. So
Yeah, absolutely.
what does it mean? What does mental health mean to you?
Mental health is the full spectrum of what's going on in your head. We can't do anything without what's going on in our head, and taking care of yourself, and also to an extent taking care of the people in your community, in your life. Like, we all need to make sure that our mental health is going right, because best advice I ever got is, if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else.
Facts.
And so if you're a community person like myself, as like an organizer, as an activist, as an artist, someone who wants to help my community thrive, I need to make sure that my mental health is doing at least a little okay before I can step out and support a bunch of other people. So mental health for me is everything that goes on inside this brain, good, bad, ugly, terrorism. Like, we can call it terrorism sometimes, like,
right.
You know, what goes on in there. And so yeah, so when I hear the words mental health, it kind of sets off flashbulbs, because then I'm like, all right, what part of mental health are we talking about here? Are we talking about the sickness? Are we talking about the what it looks like to be mentally ill? Are we talking about being in recovery?
Right.
Like, all these things, it's such a wide spectrum, and I'm so down to talk about literally every facet of it, because
Awesome.
I want people to know that the more we talk about it, the easier it gets for us to cope and to survive.
Right. And that's so true, because it is a spectrum, because some days you have your good days, some days you have your bad days, you know, some days you're sitting there going to a million doctor's appointments trying to manage the shit. And you
2
really
days
are
ago,
just,
you and I met up, and
Right.
I was in a very different attitude. You asked me how I was doing when we started, and I was like, I'm great, things are
Right,
great. And
right.
the last 2 days, some things kind of took a turn. So, like, I'm just going to be honest. Things got a little rough over the last
Right.
few days, and so I'm not, skyrocket through the happy-go-lucky me like I am all the time. Still feeling good.
Yeah.
I still recognize that things are going well, but things in my brain changed a little bit over the last few days. So, like,
as it does.
Yeah, as it does.
As it
on
does.
a whim.
On a whim. Right. That part.
Like the snap your fingers. Oh, I feel different. Snap
Right.
your fingers. Oh, I feel different again.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for explaining it like that.
Yeah.
No, because it is, and that's why they say it's like a roller coaster. It's a continual ride that you got to continue to ride for the rest of your life.
It's like a bungee jump that doesn't stop. It's
Right.
just like, whoop, we're
Up,
still
down,
falling.
up,
We're
down.
bouncing up there. Yep.
Right. So when did you become aware of mental health, and how old were you?
I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
I have that answer down.
Yeah.
I have that answer down. I was 8 years old. My mom was going through a divorce with who I refer to as the second monster, and she thought a therapist might help me, so she took me. I remember hating the person. I remember, like, I didn't like the way they asked me questions. I didn't like the way they, like, latched on to things I would say and be like, well, why did you say this? And I'm just like, I just said it. Like, just let me keep talking. Let me tell you. Like, even back then, I knew that talk therapy was something that would be very helpful to me. So, but, I remember, like, we're trying to deal with that. And then, in my teens, I started to deal heavily with suicidal ideation, as well as intent and thoughts. And so I, even from a very young age, I've been very open about how I feel and about my feelings. And if I'm not, like, I'll go stone face and you'll never know. Used to be. Lately, I wear everything on my face. You know exactly how I feel when you look at my face in any given moment. But back in the day, I used to know how to hide, right?
Yeah.
And then when I couldn't, my friend, one of my best high school friends got worried, told his mom told the guidance counselor, it was a whole thing. Excuse me, went to the hospital. And that's where I kind of like started seeing a therapist more regularly as a teenager. Unfortunately, until I turned 18, and I am of that generation where when I turned 18, if I wasn't going to college, which I did not, I was not allowed to stay on my parents' insurance. Right. And then like a few years later, they changed the law where they're like, you can stay on insurance until you're 26. And I was like, but like, we aren't going to change that for people who are already screwed by this. So I raw dog reality for like I turned 18, they were like, no more insurance, no more medication for your depression, just go out and do your thing. So spent like 10 years raw dog in reality, just being super depressed, obsessive compulsive, eating disorder, PTSD. Like I was just stacking up, all these different things that were affecting the way my brain works, whether it be the chemicals you're born with and the imbalances that happen naturally, or trauma. Like so many of us, our lives are so informed by the trauma we've been through, big, small, whatever it is, and so, it changes the physical makeup of your brain. And
right.
I can look back through my life. I just recently turned 41, and I can look back through all the stages of my life and the big mental health crises that I have been through. And I can always look at it and be like, wow, I didn't have that 5 years before that happened. So it's just so obvious that mental health is just like we evolve as people, our mental health evolves. And
right.
sometimes it doesn't evolve in a great way and it gets worse.
Right. And
we just have to keep taking care of not only ourselves, but each other.
Exactly. So thank you for explaining that. You raw dog reality.
Yeah, no drugs, no antidepressants, nothing for my OCD, nothing for my ADD. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Like, currently, the only thing I rock are some meds to help me with my insomnia, but that's also just kind of the position I'm in. I'm new to California. I haven't found a therapist. I haven't found a psychiatrist, and that's a lot of work. It takes a lot of bandwidth to do that stuff.
A lot
and if you're a mentally ill person who's down in the ditch and you're sad, last thing you want to do is research psychiatrists, because also, as a queer trans person, I have been mistreated by the medical establishment. Right. I don't know a single trans person on earth who has not been mistreated by the medical establishment. I don't know a marginalized person on earth who hasn't been mistreated.
Right.
Black women, black men, everybody. Everybody walks in, and unless you are a cis white male, the doctor's not going to take you seriously. That's been my whole life. And I used to be a cis white male, and so I saw the privilege of who I used to be, and then I became who I really am.
Right.
A very visible, very queer trans woman, and the way your privileges shift. And I still have a lot of privilege as a white woman, but the way your privileges shift from being a very large white man with a big booming voice to being what you see now, very different.
Wow.
And it also has an effect on your mental health. It can't not, right?
Yeah, definitely.
We are not statues. Like, we don't stand and not change. Like, we are beaten by the weather of this world, and we change constantly.
Definitely.
And if we don't,
every moment
you're
to
gone.
moment. Absolutely.
If you don't, you're just going to wash away.
Absolutely.
And no one will remember you.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're here and still fighting. I love it. Thank you so much.
Yes. Throwing down.
Absolutely. So how did your family handle mental health issues in your home?
Not well. I kind of, I'm kind of estranged from most of my family, and I'm kind of on the odd side of the spectrum of, like, a lot of my friends are estranged from their family because of their transness or their queerness. My family, for the most part, whole stock accepting of my queerness and my transness. My being so vocal and visible in my mental health struggles is what causes a problem for my family. So we don't want to talk about it. We want to shove it under the rug. We want you to shut up and take your meds. We want you to not show any of your symptoms, which is why the whole no stigma campaign is a great no stigma / end the stigma is a really great battle cry. It's a really great thing we need to do. The problem is with a lot of that is we end the stigma as long as your symptoms aren't showing.
Exactly.
As long as you are not in a manic episode that is ruining your life, or as long as you are not suicidal, or as long as you are not fetal and crying.
Right.
We're going to end the stigma as long as you are doing what we think you need to do to be better, not what you need to do. If I need to sit in bed all day for 12 hours, fetal and cry, that's what I need to do for myself in order to keep myself safe that day.
Absolutely.
So for someone to come in and be like, that's not how you treat your mental health, clearly you don't struggle the way I do. We are not the same people.
Right.
And that's not to say my struggles are worse than yours. I'm just saying we cope differently.
Absolutely.
And I stopped shaming myself for the ways that I cope. Let me say this. I stopped shaming myself for the ways that I cope that are not inherently detrimental to me. There are ways that we cope sometimes. I used to be a big drinker, bad drinker, and I got sober, and and I reapproached alcohol later in life, and alcohol's not an issue, but like there are other things we can absolutely do to cope that are bad for us, terrible for us, heart, drug, everything. There's all sorts of dangerous things we can do.
And a lot of us do, and a lot of people that have mental health issues do self-medicate. They can't afford medications.
Self-medicate.
We're out here self-medicating all the time.
We are self-medicating so as to be acceptable.
Right.
We self-medicate so that we can get to a level where society is like, okay, you're not a burden on us. Okay, you're not one of those bad mentally ill people. You're one of the good mentally ill people.
Right.
Which is a bullshit concept.
It's true.
Mental illness is the problem, not the person with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, no, it just opens my perspective too. And because what depression looks for you might look a lot different for me, and everybody is different. So my coping skills are going to be different from your coping skills. And, you might learn tools from a therapist or from somebody, but what might work for one person isn't going to work for the next. And we have to realize that, as people struggling with mental health, that we have to find what works for us.
Right. Like the spectrum of gender and sexuality, and like the spectrum of just being a human being.
Yeah.
There are 8 billion people on this earth, and every single person is an individual. So every single person there's 8 billion different experiences that are happening every single day to every single person. So how can you sit there and say you need to experience life the way I do?
Right.
Especially if you look at someone who looks nothing like you, has not experienced life like you, and doesn't have access to the things you have. How can you look at them and say they're not coping properly? You're not doing what you need to do.
Right. And we have to understand that, we are the advocates of our own health, our own mind, our own body. So we really have to take a stance in that. And if shit's not working for you, then you need to find another way.
Right. And we are stewards of ourselves, right? We are responsible for ourselves. And so taking care of ourselves is important. And we can tell people, yes, we understand that you are in it right now. You're going through it right now. Maybe you're in a manic episode. Maybe you're in a super depressive episode. Maybe you're in an OCD loop like I get into, and you can't stop it, and you feel like you're just a burden on everybody. And we need people to say, like, I see you.
Right.
I'm honoring what you're going through. So, and there's a balance too, because there are definitely some people who are like, I am going through what I'm going through, and you need to accept it, and whatever happens, happens. We don't always have control of those instances, but we, like, a lot of times, like, it is also our responsibility to try and take care of ourselves if we are able to.
Right.
It's a weird fine line, and to say those things kind of opens up a can of worms for people to, like, this, that, or the other thing. But, like, ultimately, like, we are responsible for ourselves, but we are also responsible for the people in our communities.
Absolutely.
And that not only translates to taking care of someone in our community who needs help, but also taking care of ourselves so that we don't need to, I don't know, I have a burden complex. I have a big burden complex. I have my whole life. So like the whole thing about sharing how I feel and telling my friends that I'm depressed, sometimes I just don't want to be a burden on my friends. And one of my favorite memes that a lot of my friends will send to me and we send to each other and everyone is the one where it's like, why won't you share your sadness with me? Like, we share all this joy. We have all these amazing times together. We lift each other up. Like, but I don't want to just be here for your smiles. I want to be here for your pain. Like, I love you and I want to hold you. And we need to tell our friends that more. We need to give our friends our flowers more.
Absolutely. I think so too. So when we talk about mental health, we often hear get help. But what does access really look like in our communities? How have disparities, whether racial, economic, or cultural, impacted your own ability or the ability of people around you to seek support or be heard?
this is another topic near and dear to my heart. As we said in the intro, I left Ohio last year in January, and I didn't really get a firm footing until earlier this year. I was living in my car, living in hotels by the generosity of people who would get me a hotel room here and there. I was literally living in the desert, and last year, I drove 40,000 miles, and I tried to make it work in Oregon. I tried to make it work in Jersey. I tried to make it work in Wisconsin. Wasn't gonna happen, but I tried. And then I got to California, and then I came out to California, and I was like, if I got to be homeless in my car in California, I'm not leaving California. This is safe for me to be here, especially as the election was coming up. But in all of those places, all of these states, red states, blue states, purple states, I signed up for every single thing that could possibly help me as a homeless queer trans woman. And this was even before the election, before the real crisis mode became like an avalanche, and they were all overtaxed. They all were lacking the resources. I had a caseworker here in California. Just to get our intake done took 6 weeks.
Wow.
Because I was in crisis. Wow. And while he was a good social worker, he was having trouble managing my crisis, but also trying to get the intake done.
Wow.
So, because he's also overworked.
Right.
Every single social worker I've ever met is overworked. And I thank them every single time for their work, because I have a friend who's a social worker in Kansas. She's the only social worker for an entire school system.
Right.
How does that serve the children?
Right, exactly.
She's a badass. I know she's a badass.
And it's hard. The burnout is real.
The burnout is so real.
And then you care, because you care so much about everybody. You want to help everybody, but then you forget to help yourself. And
we're always like, pay teachers as much as athletes. We need to pay the therapists and the social workers as much as athletes too, because the burnout is real. When your job is taking on the burdens of other people, if your job is to help people who are being crushed by the system and by themselves and by their family and by every other thing out there, and your job is to have 60 of those people that you have to help.
Right.
How do you not get weighed down? We mentioned the other day, like, therapists having therapists, right?
Therapists having therapists, yeah.
You gotta have a therapist.
You have to have a therapist.
It's just, it's the system was overtaxed before the crisis, the post-election crisis that started. And now it's just even worse. I was hospitalized a few times in the last couple of years, and each time you leave a mental hospital, they set you up for success by sending referrals out to people who can help you afterwards. I left a hospital last year it was the last day of February. I got a call back in March of this year.
Wow.
So I was let out February 28th of last year. I got a call March of this year about my follow-up.
Wow.
Like, I was released from a crisis unit, and they were like, hey, we're following up on, we have an appointment for you. And I was like, oh, what state is this? They're like, what do you mean? I was like, where are you located?
Wow.
They're like, Oregon. I was like, yeah, I haven't been in Oregon in over a year.
Wow.
They were like, what do you mean? I was like, look at the referral you got. When did you get it? And she was like, oh yeah, February 27th of last year. She's like, wow. And she even goes, wow. And then I could tell she was stopping herself from saying something, because, like, call's probably recorded, and she probably can't empathize as hard with me as she wanted to.
Right.
Like, that's the system, and that's in a progressive state that wants to help trans people, that has organizations, nonprofits, and governmental that help trans and queer people.
And they want to help. We want to help. We want to help, but we can only help so much. We can only do so much as one person.
Because when it comes to helping the mentally ill, they stop printing money.
Wow.
We'll print money for the billionaires. We'll print money for tax relief. We'll print money for war. But when it comes for education and when it comes for mental health, they stop printing money.
Wow. Wow. Well, I'm glad you're here and you're getting the help. I'm definitely glad you're here and you're getting the help.
I am working on it.
It does.
Community. It's the community that's getting me by.
Absolutely.
It is my punk community, my queer community, my trans community, my poetry community, and then all the way that those communities form together, where I find my queer punk poets and I find my queer trans poets and I find all these people who live within these different areas, and that's who keeps me alive. Wow. That's who gives me mutual aid when I need groceries or gas or a hotel room. That's who sends me messages like, hey, are you alive today? Like, I haven't heard from you in 3 days. Where you at? Like,
right. Shout out to the trans queer community out here in Sacramento, for sure.
Sacramento and all over this country. This entire country has I have an entire platoon of people around this country who were like, we need to keep Mercy alive, and they did.
Yes, we do. You're a powerful person. Yes, we need to keep Mercy alive. I love that. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
That's dope. So, do you feel like mental health resources are designed with marginalized communities in mind?
No.
Not at all.
There is not a hospital hospital in this country that can service a trans person in crisis, and no one can convince me otherwise. As I have been hospitalized in red states and blue states, I've been hospitalized in sanctuary cities, and I have been abused in every single hospital. I have been treated cruelly in every single hospital by staff, by other patients, and when I try and fix my situation and I say this is what's happening, problem is when you're locked in an institution, whether it's even if it's voluntary, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, when you're locked in an institution, you have zero autonomy.
Right.
They take away every single decision-making power you have, including about your meds, including about, they tell you this is what's good for you. You're in crisis, so you can't make these decisions for yourself. They often ask if you have anyone can help you make your decisions for you. And then they talk to that person. And I feel like if I keep going, it's going to sound like conspiracy theories. But my queer trans people who have experienced this know that I'm no bullshit.
Right.
I'm telling you what happened to me in 3 separate hospitals over the course of 18 months in 3 different places in this country. And I have this really broad idea where I would love, there needs to be an advocacy system for trans people who are stuck in hospitals. We need a system of people who can show up either virtually or on the phone and say, these are the legal rights that you are. They screw with your legal rights when you're in these places.
Wow,
because
I'm so sorry to hear that.
You're mentally ill and you clearly can't care for yourself.
Right.
I've read my chart notes even after I remember one time after a hospital visit, my ex-spouse was like, don't read the chart notes. I was like, why? And they were like, don't. They're just going to upset you.
Yeah.
Because the hospital accused my spouse of faking their disability.
Wow.
In the chart notes, they said that I'm too well educated for myself because I know so much about my own mental illness. So like when you can defend yourself in those situations, even when you're in crisis, you become a problem.
Right.
So then they're like, oh, we need to keep this person like away from other people because they know how to advocate for themselves. And to have someone who is in crisis who can also advocate for themselves, it's kind of scary to the establishment because they're used to people just taking whatever they're given, and as soon as they can stand on their own 2 feet and wash themselves, they kick them out the door.
Wow, I can only imagine. I'm sorry. That just gives me the chills just thinking about that. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. So, how can we change that as a community? How can we step in and change that as individuals?
Listen to mentally ill people when they talk. Listen to this podcast, to every single person who has ever been on this podcast who has had issues with mental illness, and when they say something and you're like, that doesn't seem right, just know that they're right.
Yeah.
It may be skewed through a lens of crisis. It may be skewed through a lens of whatever things you're going through, but your own lived experience is 100% real.
Right.
And that's the other thing is a lot of times with marginalized people, the ruling class tries to tell you that your experience isn't your experience. Exactly. They try and tell you that your eyes are deceiving you. They're trying to tell you that your ears are deceiving you. They're trying to tell you that your heart is deceiving you.
Right.
My gut is my strongest muscle.
100%.
I trust my gut more than anything. Even in the last year, and I know I made some really bad decisions in the last year, and I trusted the wrong people, but I was way into the crisis mode. But like when I can stop and think about something, my friends come to me for character judgments. They're like, "What do you think of this person?"
Right.
And if I have a negative, that person's gone. Out. And people come to me for my opinion on, hey, is this situation safe? Even a safety situation. Like, I've lived I've had a lot of experiences in my life, and I have found myself in more dangerous situations than the average person. Not only because of being a trans queer person, but even beforehand. Hey, this will make a good story. You want to go do this crazy thing and disappear for 3 days? Let's do it. Let's go. This is going to make a good story. And now all of a sudden, something bad's happening 3 states away and we need to figure shit out.
Yeah. Wow.
So like I take a job that winds up being wildly dangerous and I live that life and I get out of it. And then I'm at a dinner party and telling a story about the time I tased a pimp on Christmas Eve.
Wow.
Because he pulled a knife on me. No joke. And then I'm like, oh wait, that probably isn't really a dinner party story. But that's just the life I've led. And so these days people are like, if we're inviting Mercy to dinner, we know there's gonna be some chaos going on. Wow. And it's why people love me.
Yeah, but you experienced it. That's what you experienced. It's the experience. That's what you lived, and it's true, it's facts.
And the more I share my lived experience, the more other people we'll say, okay, yeah, that's a wild story. But if Mercy's telling this wild story, that means this other person who I try to because just discounting our stories is just, it's like play one in the book. Oh yeah, no, whatever you're saying isn't the truth. Whatever you think is true isn't true. Like just discrediting us.
Right.
And discrediting mentally ill people is incredibly easy.
Yeah.
When it needs to not be.
Exactly. Thank you. So do you feel like the world's understanding on mental health has changed since you became aware of what mental health is?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. But it's still not good enough.
Right.
And it won't be for a long time, because mental illness and I mean, even look at how health insurance, like that racket, that terrible racket of health insurance, your mental health is different. Why do I need special approval to go see a therapist, but like you'll send me to the doctor to lose weight like 5 times a week if you think I'm too fat? Like you want me to look good, but like as long as I'm meted up on whatever random psychiatrist you find for me, because I have the public benefit and I can't make, choices for, doctors. I have to get whatever you give me.
Right.
Self-advocacy just needs to be sorry, that's not the question. The question was, how has it changed? So like since I was 8, yeah, absolutely. Access is better. Right. There are all these things going on where like now you can just access on your phone. Yeah. But a lot of those apps are kind of sketch, and so you really need to do your due diligence when working with that type of stuff with any therapist, really. But yeah, access is better than it was back then, but it's still terrible. Right. It's still very much gate kept by exorbitant costs. All my friends have ADHD, but none of us have diagnosis. Why? Because insurance won't cover the test, and the test is $2,000. Right. Like, why is the test $2,000? Right. Why is you asking me a bunch of questions about whether or not I have ADHD, which honestly, you talked to me for 5 minutes and I do. Like, why are you now trying to charge me $2,000 to tell me I have what I have? Like, and then you want to charge me, $500 for my monthly medication. Right. Like it's the profit isn't in the cures, the profit's in the treatment. So keep these people sick, and we're just going to keep stacking those dollars. That's all it is. Right. I worked in corporate healthcare for 11 years, and it was so soul crushing. It was so soul crushing, and I hated it every single day. Working in private healthcare. Working in the healthcare industry, I worked for a private pharmacy. I worked for a pharmacy. I hated it. I watched what insurance companies did year after year to screw the patient. Oh, we're changing a policy. Why? Because the patient's saving too much money on their medication, so we're going to change the policy so they literally have to spend more money. Wow. Like, I literally watched those policies get written and enacted in the corporate healthcare world.
Yeah, policies are changing every 5 minutes.
Yeah, because they need more money.
It's crazy. That's crazy. So do you believe in and trust therapy? We've already kind of went over that. But
absolutely, 100%. Yeah. I'm the one who's telling all my friends, find a therapist, and then they'll be like, do you have one? And I'm like, hey, we're not talking about me right now. Right. I love therapy. Get yourself a therapist. So I am 100% on board with everyone getting a therapist. Right.
And you're a great advocate for yourself. So what I like to tell everybody on the show is that if a therapist doesn't fit, and I know it kind of sucks because you have, the public health, public assistance, and you're assigned to a therapist, but you have the right to advocate for yourself. And if it's not fitting, find another one, ask for a referral out.
And if you have trouble standing up for yourself, you can probably find a friend who will help you out. Right. Hell, go on social media and say, do I know anyone who wants to be help me defend myself? Find someone you trust. Right. Who can then stand there with you, because honestly, there's days where I can't stand up for myself. There's days where I can't go to a doctor, and not much these days, but in the past there were definitely times where I would take my exes with me to doctor's appointments because I would be like, hey, I'm feeling vulnerable, and the doctor might railroad me and tell me this is what they want, but it's not what I want. Right. So I would take a partner with me, or a friend even, who would sit there, literally hold my hand in the doctor's appointment, and if they saw that it was going a way that they could tell I didn't like, they would step up and speak for me. Right. I do that for my friends as well.
Yes.
I'm self-advocacy. Just put your foot down. And if they keep saying, well, blah, you didn't give it a shot, be like, I gave it a shot, and I'm telling you it's not working. Right. Just keep putting your foot down, because it is your mental health, and at the end of the day, you're really the only one who's going to be able to help yourself.
Exactly.
But that also includes reaching out to people who will help you.
Absolutely.
But in the very end, it's you helping yourself.
Absolutely. 100%. I agree. So what has helped you manage stress or anxiety in the past?
In the past, drug use. So I had to get away from that.
Right.
You know, like we talked about
Those were those dark
self-medicating. If I
days.
didn't, those dark days, I didn't have access to, you know, medications. I didn't have access to therapy. So I drank a lot.
Right.
There are other forms of self-medication that I feel are safer, that are, sometimes we refer to it as harm reduction. And for me, that's mainly, you know, the use of cannabis. It is very much for me something that helps with my anxieties, my OCD, my ADHD, like just being able to help myself in that small way, remove myself from a situation that's stressing me out, be able to just do a little bit of self-medication. I'm not talking about like I'm going to get like sky high floating through the clouds.
Right.
Like I just... bring me back to center.
Yeah.
So like access to the things that we personally know help us.
Right. Do what works for you.
That aren't just going to destroy us. Like, you know, I'm not trying to say justify blackout drinking.
No.
I'm just saying like using your prescriptive medications as they are prescribed. I have friends who have prescriptions for prescriptions that are like strong, like a Xanax or something like that.
Right.
Something that's kind of strong and can be abused, and they're afraid to use it, but they have the prescription. And I'm like, listen, it was prescribed and it's helpful. Like there's this stigma against there's a stigma against everything.
No,
like,
because it's scary.
It is
really
scary too.
Scary
It's
because
scary.
a lot of people then, a lot of people who don't want to self-medicate, but then they get the medications, don't want to become addicted, and it's just...
There's a balance.
It's a vicious cycle.
There's a vicious
definitely.
cycle, and there's a balance to be had, which is why more access to therapy, more
Right.
access to...
Somebody who can explain these things to you, and make you feel a little more comfortable and manage these things with you, so you don't have to manage these things on your own and continue to have that, that fear in your mind.
Yeah, just access to care.
Right.
Whatever that care looks like, we
Right.
need access to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So...
Without having to jump through fiery hoops.
Right.
Why do I need 10 referrals for one doctor, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So how do you usually cope when things get overwhelming today?
Today, I'll separate myself from a place. I'll go for a walk, deep breaths, talk to someone. I'll reach out. Like I said, I have this vast network of people who want to keep me alive. So I usually have someone somewhere in this country who is awake at some hour of the day.
Nice.
That I can just shoot a quick text to, like, hey, I'm not doing great. Can I vent to you? Can I offload? And sometimes my friends are like, some of my friends who know I've really been going through it are like, hey, I'm not in the best headspace to accept that, but
Right.
as long as that's, and I've always told all my friends, no, 100% no is a sentence.
It is the sentence.
And it is respected.
Absolutely.
If you need to draw a boundary with me where I'm going through too much and it's affecting your mental health, I will do nothing but respect that.
Right.
And I will actually respect you more because you are respecting me enough to set that boundary.
Right.
You're respecting me enough to take care of yourself and say, hey, I love you. I cannot help you right now.
That's dope.
Because I've had friends who didn't have the capacity, who tried, and then we pull each other down.
Yeah.
And it's the worst. You don't want to pull your friends down. That's
Absolutely.
that burden complex,
I was
right?
gonna say that's that burden.
That's that burden
yeah,
complex.
we all feel it.
But our friends, sometimes our friends, and sometimes myself, we will push our own issues to the side to our own detriment to help our friends.
Right.
And that's just kind of what we do.
But
and
that's dope,
it's never
though,
going to stop.
Keeping that clear line of communication, though, and letting people know that, set those boundaries. And
Yep.
that's the healthiest thing anybody can do in a friendship is setting those boundaries and just keeping it real.
Yep.
You know?
I was joking last year. It's a common meme or joke, but I said to someone, I was like, I'm entering my villain era. And they go, did that mean you just set a few boundaries? Are people angry at you for setting boundaries? I was like, I don't know. Talk to my ex.
Right.
Talk to my ex because I'm not.
Oh, no. Wow. Okay. So why do you think having a creative outlet is important in managing your mental health?
Oh, it's a pressure valve. It's like the pressure cooker on the stove that's been cooking and you got the little valve and the steam's coming out. If I can't create, that steam's not getting out, and it's
Right.
going to become something inside me that could become self-destructive. If I'm not creating, it could become drinking. It could become other drugs. It could become reckless behavior. It could be any sort of thing. As someone who suffers from suicidal ideation and intent and all sorts of things like that, being a creative gives me a way to express that without using
Nice.
I'm suicidal. Like that, just that word can be very triggering to people, and I get it. It can be triggering to me. So we often use other language. We say unalive, or we say these other things because there's so much stigma around suicide, and that is one of the problems, is that we are often not talking. I actually designed a grrlphag zine early on that was literally just going to be about suicide.
I love that.
And I didn't print it. I'm going to eventually. I didn't print it. I wound up getting a different project come through, and I was like, this one I want to do for a special event. But I was like, yeah, I need to do a suicide issue. I need to do an issue because
I would love that.
Because we are so often not talking about it in order to be polite, in order to not cause distress to someone. But then that person's gone.
And that keeps everybody in silence. You know, we need to bring awareness
then
to
that
suicide
person's gone.
because many of us are thinking it at times. Many of us have tried it. You know,
one of my closest friends on the phone just the other day, we were talking about last year just a little bit, and we were talking, and she's like, how you feeling? I was like, I'm proud of myself. And then I kind of stopped, like, wow, I haven't said I'm proud of myself in a long time. And she was like, baby, I'm so proud of you. She was like, there were times last year, like, I thought we were going to lose you. And I was like, to be honest, more times than you almost did.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Thank you.
I'm glad I'm
Thank
here
you. I'm
too,
so glad you're
and-
here. I see you thriving. I see you're creative. You know, your creativeness is absolutely stunning and out there, and you're just making waves in Sacramento community. I love it. Thank you so much.
And the way Sacramento community and all those communities I've mentioned, the way they just instantly grabbed me, took me in a big bear hug. The poets, the queers, the trans, the punks, everybody, they just took me. They were like, you're here now and we love you.
We love you.
They gave me a hug. There were no questions about my past. There was no what you've been through. It was, you seem like a good person with good intent and we want you in our circle. And you all took me in.
Great. That's amazing. I love that. Okay.
It takes a village to love Mercy.
It does. It does take a village. Absolutely. We stand by that. So what can you tell our listeners to encourage them to check on their mental health, to check themselves, check their mental health?
Do it. Do it. Do it. Like, all you got to do is check your mental health. Just find a friend who's okay to check in and say, hey, I'm having a bad day. Can you tell me a joke? I'm having a bad day. You got any advice? I'm having a bad day. Just tell me, yeah, today sucks. Sometimes I just need someone to agree with me.
Right.
I need someone to look at what I went through and go, that fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And that is like, yeah, it does. Finally, someone saw me and someone knows, and it's not all in my head. Because that's the other thing about mentally ill. We all think it's in our heads.
Right.
I mean, physically it
is.
is.
I was going to say, it is.
Physically, chemically, technically, it is in our heads. But
other people are thinking it too.
Exactly. We're not
alone.
None 8 billion people.
Right.
We are not alone.
That part. Yes. Reach out for help. You know, ask a friend, call somebody. Tell somebody you need help. If you don't understand it or know it, just tell somebody you need help.
Right. We have the National Suicide Hotline, and just within the last few years, the National Trans Suicide Hotline was open.
Yeah.
And I've always said, if I ever came into like millions of dollars, the first like half of it goes to funding the trans suicide line for the rest of eternity.
Absolutely.
Like, that's my number one goal, is access to mental care for my people.
Yes, there are 24-hour hotlines out there for you to call. If your family or friends can't help you and don't understand what you're going through, there are numbers that you can call to help. 988 is the suicide line here in Sacramento.
I would just like to say, and I say this to anyone who offers 988 by mandate will send the police. So think about who you're dealing with.
Right.
Think about what's going on and whether or not an armed person known for shooting people for freaking out is the right person to come through.
Yeah.
Some cities have social workers that will show up in a crisis moment.
Right.
But more often than not, we're hearing about mentally ill people being gunned down, unarmed mentally ill people being gunned down because someone called the cops on them rather than, trying to figure something else out. So 988 is for like if someone's on the top on a bridge about to jump. 988 is not for your person who's. I can't give advice about that. All I can say is certain services by mandate will send the police, so you need to take that into account when you are seeking help for someone or yourself.
Right. Yes.
But I should not be saying don't do it in either way, because that would be irresponsible of me, because here I am saying get help. Get help.
Right.
But no, there are better ways to do it, and an armed officer responding is usually not the way to do it.
That part. So let's switch gears.
Let's
that was
switch
tough.
gears.
That was tough.
Hey,
Let's switch
we're talking about
gears.
mental illness. It gets
we
tough.
We are definitely talking about mental illness, and but there's a brighter side to each day.
Absolutely.
It, like we said, it's a roller coaster, but you can definitely have something to look up to in every situation, and that creative side is how I see the light. And for you, I seen that that's how I met you, is in the creative scene and the poetry scene. So do you have any poems you want to share with us?
I would love to share a couple poems with you. I have a book coming out very soon. It's called Be Merciless. It's actually called Be Soft, Be Merciless. It's 2 books in one. It's the book that I wrote. It's largely the poetry I wrote when I first came out as a queer trans woman, leading up to my leaving Ohio, not knowing I was leaving Ohio. So it's kind of like talking about all these things, and then after I left Ohio, kept writing, obviously going through everything I'm going through. And so it's the book I released last year, but I only released it as a PDF. It never went to print, so I would just email it to people. So I'm doing a physical copy, and in the punk world, we do what's called split EPs, where bands will often put 3 songs each on a record in order to defray the cost and to get it out to more people. So in the spirit of DIY punk, I'm doing a split poetry book where it's 2 books in one.
I love it.
Be Merciless is some of the most raw poetry I've ever written, and I'm so proud of it, and I just want to get it into people's hands. So like, I'm working real hard. We're doing a poetry show Saturday the 14th, Sacramento Pride, Better Days Tattoo from 2 to 5. I'll be hosting and featuring, doing kind of like a hybrid open mic where people from around the city are going to drop in just to drop some poems. There's going to be vendors. There are going to be food trucks.
Nice.
And I'll also have some visual art on display as well as other artists. It's just a big old queer art Saturday walk. It's going to be so much fun. And then that night at the Silver Linings piano bar on 16th, where I also work, we are doing the Liz Shine Rainbow Bash.
I love it.
It is a queer trans love fest, basically. It's a ticketed event. You can find me on Instagram at grrlphag, grrlphag. There are links. I post about it all the time. I'll be performing HK Poet, Liz Shine, Dora, and several other people and it's just going to be an amazing night of love, celebrating pride, of artists coming together and celebrating pride. So come through to that show. We're going to have special drinks for some of the performers, including the grrlphag, which is a drink I invented. So it's going to be an amazing time. And then I'm just around the city. I'm trying to hit up every open mic I can.
Yes.
I'm going to be heading out on the road a little bit this fall with some friends just to do some stuff in other places. And so that's what I'm doing. So just hit me up on Instagram at grrlphag. We can get you copies of my book. I make videos. I do some funny stuff. I do some sad stuff. So I have some poems. Let's do a love poem.
Okay.
Let's do something positive.
Let's do something positive. Yeah.
This poem is called T for T is my hope with teeth. And for those who don't know, T for T is what we use when we talk about trans people who are in relationships with other trans people. We say we are T for T. And this is actually a second poem in a suite of poems called Hope with Teeth. So there's the poem called My Hope with Teeth, and then there's the poem about how T for T is actually that. T for T is my hope with teeth. A holy prayer, a love song to myself and my people. T for T for my safety and yours. It's being held, understood without ever so much as parting your lips to gasp, let alone put words to something that vibrates inside all of us at once. The terror and the tension, the compersion and the orgasm. T for T because I don't have to explain why the mirrors are covered. Why I can never go back to that particular McDonald's after the incident in the bathroom. Why you are not to speak to me in the bathroom. Why I don't wear shoes that don't tie tight. T for T in the way our fingers dance complex taps like Savion Glover is stamping out the demons with a heel down, chug, chug, heels down, chug, chug. T for T is forward motion. T for T is heels dug in for each other, for one another, for you and me and all our other lovers. T for T because you won't ever have to tell me that existing was hard on you today. Because T for T knows that the sun never rises in our favor and the gavel rarely falls in our favor, that anything that comes easy to us is often by mistake or mercy. T for T is the fire-forged bond. I prefer to find my lovers in the foxholes our elders have dug. You tell me there are no atheists down there, and you're right, because all I find fighting tooth and nail for our survival are the goddesses and gods and genderless deities I have come to love. T for T is my hope with teeth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
And then I have one about mental illness.
That's deep.
Thank you so much. It's T for T, and the way my trans community holds me in a very specific way that only trans people understand. Thank you, and I love you all.
Yes. And we all love you.
Thank you. All right, this one's called They Say. It's kind of like a different type of poem that I do. I feel like as an artist, and you may notice this, as you create, the style you create with changes, right? So I used to do a lot of like narrative stuff, and now I'm doing a little more experimental stuff closer to music even sometimes. And I am working on starting a band.
Hey.
This poem's called They Say.
They Say. I like this one.
Thank you. Stay alive at any cost, they say. Stay and fight, they say. Fleeing is giving up, they say. Any cost isn't that cost. You need to stay. Caught between the crossfire of stay alive and stay and fight, you cannot have it always, always. Guilt is a tempestuous bitch, I say. Sometimes it pulls me down, sometimes it fucks off on its own, but it always has its claws in me. Leave a mark, I say. Everyone else has, I say. You can too, I say. I have soft flesh left to play. I save these spots for just such a day. I say. Where is my ton of flesh? If we take it by the pound, we will be here for decades. I say, hear me. Hear my voice say me. Me. I am fighting for me. All torn knuckle and sucker punch. The flesh of my belly is raw and torn from the ripped, jagged surface of this planet I have crawled across. The therapist that isn't my therapist asks, what kept you going? When the question isn't kept, but keeps. A poet asks me, why stay? Why stay? Why stay? Why stay? Tell me why. Can you tell me what keeps me going? I cannot for the life of me tell you what keeps me crawling. That is why I have to ask you. I am unhinged. I am cracked, wide open. I am easily manipulated by my diagnosis and the way they are playing demolition derby with my synapse. I feel crazy. I felt like I was going crazy. I blew past that line in the sand long ago. I feel crazy. I am crazy. You are not crazy, they say. Here are your pills. You are not crazy, they say. Here are your pills. You are not crazy, they say. Take these pills. You are not crazy, they say. Take these pills. Take these pills. Take your goddamn pills. They say, they said, they say, they will continue to have a say. Thank you so much, Jay.
That is so deep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wow.
To be able to share that poem specifically means a lot to me, so thank you.
It is so true. Wow. Like, that's deep, and it just gets me thinking of somebody always has a say.
Somebody always has
in
a say.
your life. And whether
we
good,
gotta make
bad,
it us. We gotta make it us.
Down, right.
We have to make it our say.
Absolutely.
Even while everyone else is trying to make it their say.
Absolutely.
So they'll continue to say.
But fuck them.
They will continue to say, but fuck them.
Fuck them, you know?
Fuck 'em.
You got to be the advocate of yourself. No matter what anybody says about you, continue to shine.
Absolutely.
Because you are a power force for sure.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
And I'm
That
glad
means a
you're
lot.
here.
Thank
I'm
you.
definitely glad you're here.
Honored to
Thank
be
you.
here. Honored to talk about it. Honored to come back anytime you want.
Yes, absolutely. So tell
And
them.
we need to get on some shows together.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it. Tell them where they can find you again.
All right, so Instagram, Threads, TikTok, at grrlphag, grrlphag. It's a movement. Find me. I'm running around this city like crazy. We got trans music night happening tonight, which this isn't gonna air for a while, but like I'm doing punk shows, I'm doing poetry shows. I'm gonna try and jump in on everything possible. So if you want to see a punk rock poet do her thing in a weird place, you got a weird place for me to perform, call me up. Like
Yes.
I love weird stuff.
Yes,
Like let's
yes.
make art together. Like I said, said,
Absolutely.
the collaboration is one of my biggest artistic endeavor. I love collaboration. So if you're an artist in Sacramento, I don't care what kind of artist you are.
Right.
If you think a poet, we could do something as a
Hell
poet.
yeah.
Let's do it. Call
Just
me up.
do it.
I want to collaborate.
Yes. So, like, subscribe, comment.
Absolutely.
You know, like, subscribe, follow, comment, do
And
all
show
that
up to
good
live
jazz.
art.
Show up to live
Show up to
art.
live art.
And check yourself. Check your mental health.